says, Shimmy says, Shimmy, Shimmy, Shimmy says, ask me almost anything.
Hey everyone, it's Shimmy. I'm doing a special Friday, Shimmy says, this week, because I did one yesterday. I don't know if you caught it. It was about what I'm calling an AI bubble, right? And if people don't want to call it a bubble, fine. But that was yesterday's. Let me tell you about today's. Today I want to talk about what I'm calling CISO payola. I wrote about it on Security Boulevard. I think the article ran Monday. And then we discussed it on the Techstrong gang, which ran earlier this morning. There's a stench in the security market, and this has been a long simmering problem, but I think it's really risen to new heights, and I think part of the reason it's risen is that overall I think we're seeing a decay of our morals and ethics in business, and it's due to a lot of reasons, but we're not going to get into those reasons today. I want to define the problem. What I mean by CISO payola is it's a range of different activities. It ranges from the far worst example, and this is not new, of vendors paying CISOs or other important decision makers in organizations, flat out paying them cash or some other form of compensation for them to use the vendor's solution within the organization. And as I said, it's not a new problem. We've seen this historically in business, but it was always treated as something that was wrong. I've known executives who have lost their job over it. Theoretically, executives, especially at a public company or a Fortune company, should register with the company if they have any sort of compensatory interest in a potential vendor, and they should be precluded from the decision-making process. But that's a relatively easy case to navigate. It's a kind of bright line. There's blurrier lines that have popped up and dimmer lines that have popped up. For instance, a lot of VCs have CISO councils where they bring in prospective portfolio companies or existing portfolio companies, and they have them pitch to CISOs, and the CISOs give feedback. And look, the CISOs are giving their time and giving their expertise in the feedback, and they should be compensated. The question becomes, though, is there a quid pro quo? Is that CISO's organization then being pitched by the companies who pitched the CISOs? And if so, are the CISOs declaring that they interacted with that company and maybe were compensated for interacting with that company and therefore precluding themselves from that decision-making process? Because if they're not, I'm not saying it's illegal, but I think it crosses an ethical line. And it's just a way of buying influence. Now, there are plenty of VCs who run these CISOs councils, and they're all above board. The CISOs, as a matter of fact, tell vendors they're precluded from selling to the CISO's organization as a result of it. And that, I applaud them for it. But there are plenty of these CISO councils that don't run like that. And the CISOs are making money, and then these people come into the CISO's organization as a friend of the CISO. These vendors do. There's other examples of this, though. Again, variations. The CISOs themselves have cut out the middlemen. They form their own CISO clubs. And if a vendor wants to pitch a CISO, well, they could come down to the club and, there might be a $25,000, $50,000 fee, and I'm going to have 10 or 12 of my CISO friends here, and you could tell us about your solution for the 25 or 50 grand. And you know what? A vendor's out happy to do that because they spend that much money on marketing. If they're going to have 12 CISOs' ears for 25 or 50 grand, it might be worth it to them. But the issue then becomes, what else is involved in it? What's the quid pro quo there? What goes into that money? Do these CISOs now take these vendors' pitches back to their own organizations? And are they involved in buying decisions from the vendors who compensated the CISO club? Again, if that's the case, I think that's an ethical line crossed. We shouldn't have that. And this isn't, as I said earlier, it's not just CISO. Sometimes it's people 1 and 2 levels down below the CISO. Sometimes it's the CIO. It could be, anyone in this food chain who has decision-making process. We need some sort of code of ethics. And it's not just on that side of the house. It's not just on the buyer side of the house. The vendors themselves, they're under so much pressure to produce revenue. Every vendor we speak to always says, who's your target audience? Oh, we want to talk to CISOs and, security buying decision makers. That's who they spend literally hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars trying to reach. So if they have an opportunity to reach them, and maybe it does cross a little bit of a line, what stops them from wanting to do that? What stops them from doing that? The vendors, if we're going to have some sort of code of ethics here for CISOs and decision makers, we need a code of ethics for vendors as well. You can't buy. And this is a game that's been going on, since the dawn of time. But buying influence like that, where does it cross the line? Where does it become bribery? Where does it become wrong? As an organization, as an industry, we've got to clean up our own act here. We've got to do something about this. There are too many good CISOs out there, ethical CISOs, morally upstanding people who are going to be painted with this stinking brush. And so I'm asking the industry, what are we going to do to clean this up? There's enough CISO organizations out here. What is your organization going to do? Vendors, what are you doing to show that, hey, we play by a set of rules where it's not, can I grease the skids here and give you some sort of stock options or, the advisory council? That's another way this game is played. We've got to clean it up ourselves. Otherwise, someone's going to clean it up for us. That's Shimmy. I hope you've enjoyed this. If this rings a bell to you, reach out to me on LinkedIn. Speak up about it. Let's do something about it.
Shimmy says, shimmy says, shimmy, shimmy, shimmy says, ask me almost anything.